Welcome back to the Ancestral Findings podcast. As America moves toward its 250th anniversary in 2026, many people are thinking again about the country's founding, its documents, its ideals, and the generations who carried the story forward. July 4th, 2026 marks 250 years since the signing of the Declaration of Independence. America 250, the National Archives, the Smithsonian, and many local communities are preparing programs, exhibits, and commemorations connected to that anniversary. That makes this a good time to think about what we remember, how we remember it, and what happens when public history changes. In travels around the country, it's hard not to notice that some public history has changed. In some towns, monuments have been removed. In others, signs have been replaced, plaques have disappeared, buildings have been renamed, and local displays have been rewritten. Sometimes those changes happen after public debate. Other times they happen quietly. And only the people who pass through often notice that something is missing. People will disagree about whether each change is good, bad, needed, unfair, overdue, or unnecessary. That's part of living in a country with a long and complicated past. But one thing remains true. Removing a marker does not remove the history. A sign may come down. A statue may be moved. A display may be changed. A building may get a new name. Yet the event still happened. The person still lived. The community still existed. The letters were still written. The court files were still recorded. The newspapers still printed the story. The land records still show the owners. The pension files still tell of military service. The church registers still name baptisms, marriages, and burials. The census still places families in a household, on a road, in a town, in a year. Public memory can change, but the past does not vanish because a public display changes. That's why America's 250th anniversary should send us back to the sources. A monument, roadside marker, courthouse plaque, or bronze statue can be valuable. It can tell people that something important happened in that place. It can make a passerby stop and ask a question. It can connect a town square, battlefield, cemetery, river crossing, schoolhouse, or churchyard to the lives that came before. But a marker is not the full story. It's usually a short statement written by someone at a certain time for a certain purpose. It may be accurate, but incomplete. It may honor one person while leaving out others. It may use the language of the era in which it was written. It may leave out conflict, suffering, faith, courage, injustice, duty, family, or sacrifice because there wasn't enough room or because the people who placed it didn't think to include those parts of the story. That doesn't make old markers useless. It means we should understand what they are. They are entry points. They are not the final word. A roadside sign can say that a battle took place nearby, but it can't name every soldier. A plaque can honor a founder, but it can't explain every choice that person made. A statue can represent one public memory of a person, but it can't hold the full record of a life. A courthouse display can tell visitors what the county wishes to preserve, but it can't replace the documents in the record books. Public memory is what a community chooses to put on display. History is what happened, as best as we can recover it from evidence. That difference is important as we approach America 250. The country is preparing to celebrate, but it's also preparing to ask what should be remembered, who should be included, and how the story should be told. Those questions are not new. Every generation has asked them in one form or another. So instead of asking only what is still standing, we should also ask what evidence remains. A marker can point you toward a story, but it should not be treated as the whole story. Use it as a clue. Then look for the records behind it. If a statue is moved, ask where it came from, who placed it there, when was it dedicated, who attended the ceremony, what was said that day, why was that person honored, who objected, if anyone, who paid for it, what did local newspapers write about it? If a building is renamed, ask who it was originally named for. What was that person's connection to the town, school, church, courthouse, battlefield, or neighborhood? Are there minutes from a school board, city council, church body, or county commission? Are there old photographs, deed records, construction files, newspaper notices, or anniversary programs? If a historical plaque disappears, ask who wrote the text. Was it placed by a local historical society, a state marker program, a veterans group, a church, a family association, or a private donor? Did the wording come from primary sources, family tradition, local memory, or a later interpretation? These are research questions. A removed marker may remove a visible clue, but it does not remove the trail. In many cases, the trail is still there. It may be in a courthouse, archive, state library, church basement, pension file, digitized newspaper, cemetery record, tax list, town history, family Bible, or old photograph. When a marker, statue, plaque, or display changes, ask who placed it there originally. Ask when it was dedicated. Ask what person, event, or place it honored. Ask who paid for it or sponsored it. Ask what local newspapers said at the time. Ask whether there were public speeches, ceremonies, or objections. Ask whether old photographs, maps, or postcards show it. Ask whether local historical societies or archives have files about it. That is where genealogy and local history become so useful. Genealogy teaches us to look past the surface. A name on a monument may lead to a birth record, military file, land grant, probate packet, widow's pension, diary, court case, or newspaper obituary. A missing marker may lead to the same places. The work does not stop because the sign is gone. Sometimes the absence of a marker makes the research even more necessary. The 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence is a national commemoration, but it's also a reason to return to the records that show how ordinary people lived as the country was built. The Declaration itself is a document. The Revolution created documents. The war created muster rolls, pay records, pension files, land grants, supply lists, court records, tax lists, correspondence, newspapers, and legislative records. The years that followed created even more. Families moved, bought land, joined churches, wrote wills, buried children, petitioned governments, argued in courts, built towns, taught schools, published newspapers, opened businesses, fought wars, and passed stories down. That is where national history becomes personal. Most families will not find an ancestor who signed the Declaration of Independence. Most will not find a famous founder, general, governor, or statesman. But many families will find people who lived in the same world as those public figures. They farmed, preached, printed, marched, cooked, carried, traded, taught, served, nursed, built, fled, resisted, struggled, and survived. America 250 gives us a reason to ask better questions. Where were your ancestors in 1776? Were they in the colonies or somewhere else? Did they support independence, oppose it, or try to stay out of the conflict? Did they serve in a militia, continental unit, loyalist unit, state government, church, or local committee? Were they enslaved, free, indentured, native, immigrant, poor, wealthy, landowning, landless, literate, or unable to sign their own name? What did they leave behind in records? What public events touched their private lives? These questions don't require a monument. They require curiosity, patience, and evidence. The story may be found in deeds and land grants, probate files and wills, court records, church registers, military service records, pension applications, tax lists, census records, newspapers, cemetery records, school board minutes, city council minutes, county histories, family Bibles, letters, diaries, and photographs. The National Park Service, National Archives, Smithsonian, state archives, county courthouses, local libraries, historical societies, university collections, and genealogical organizations all preserve pieces of this larger story. That gives family historians a useful opportunity. We can connect national memory to household memory. We can place ancestors back into the towns, counties, churches, farms, shops, courtrooms, and military units where they lived. Travel has a way of teaching history differently than books do. When you stand in an old town square, walk through a courthouse, visit a battlefield, read names in a cemetery, or stop at a small roadside marker, the past feels closer. You see the hill, the river, the road, the churchyard, the old brick, the field, and the distance between one town and another. When something has been removed, that absence can be noticeable. A blank space on a wall can raise questions. An empty pedestal can make people wonder. A renamed building can send a researcher back to old maps. A missing marker can make someone ask what used to be there. The place still has a story. Sometimes a place has more than one story. A courthouse may hold records of marriage, land, lawsuits, probate, enslavement, emancipation, immigration, business crime, guardianship, adoption, debt, and citizenship. A town square may have seen celebrations, trials, speeches, markets, parades, protests, soldiers leaving for war, and families gathering after loss. A church may have been a center of worship, schooling, charity, burial, conflict, and community identity. A plaque can only tell part of that. That's why we should not depend only on what is displayed in public. Public displays can help us begin, but they should never be the only record we trust. When a marker is present, read it, photograph it, record the location, note the organization that placed it, then look for the sources behind it. When a marker is gone, ask what used to be there. Search old photographs, look through local newspapers, contact a historical society, check county histories, search state marker databases, ask older residents, look through the library's vertical files, search maps and postcards, study city council minutes or county commission records. The story may still be there, waiting in another form. Genealogy is often better at preserving the quieter parts of history than monuments are. Public markers usually remember the famous, the powerful, the heroic, the tragic, or the controversial. Genealogy follows everyone else too. It follows the widow who applied for a pension decades after the war. It follows the child bound out as an apprentice. It follows the family who moved west after losing land. It follows the black soldier whose service was recorded but whose story never received a statue. It follows the woman whose name appears in a deed release, church register, probate file, or newspaper death notice. It follows the immigrant who arrived after the founding but became part of the country's continuing story. Public memory often looks upward. Genealogy looks outward. It asks who lived nearby, who married whom, who witnessed the deed, who signed the will, who stood as bondsman, who served in the same company, who appeared on the same tax list, who bought land along the same creek, who joined the same church, who moved together from one county to another. Those details can reveal the structure of a life and the life of a community. That's why the loss or change of public markers should not discourage historical research. It should sharpen it. If public memory becomes thinner, private research becomes more necessary. If public displays change, the records become more valuable. If a community no longer sees a name on a sign, a researcher can still recover the documents that explain who that person was, what they did, and why anyone remembered them in the first place. This is also where family historians can help future generations. We can save photographs of markers that still stand. We can transcribe old plaques before they disappear. We can record cemetery inscriptions before the stones wear down. We can upload photographs to cemetery databases. We can cite our sources carefully. We can donate family papers to the right archives. We can write the stories of our own families in ways that are honest, clear, and supported by evidence. We can also teach younger generations that history is not limited to a textbook, museum, or town square. History is in the records. Many people wonder whether children are still taught the same history that earlier generations learned in school. The answer depends on the state, the school, the curriculum, the teacher, and the era. History education has never been exactly the same everywhere. Textbooks change, standards change, teachers choose different examples. Local priorities shift. Some subjects receive more time, and others receive less. That gives families another reason to take history seriously at home. Parents, grandparents, researchers, and local historians do not need to wait for a school program to preserve memories. They can take children to cemeteries, courthouses, battlefields, historic homes, libraries, archives, and old neighborhoods. They can show them original documents. They can explain why a census record is useful. They can show how a deed places a family on land. They can show how a pension file can turn a name into a life. Children do not need to begin with arguments about monuments. They can begin with questions. Who was this person? Where did they live? What happened here? Why is this name on this stone? Why did this family move? What was happening in the country at that time? What records can we find? Those questions build historical thinking. They also make history harder to lose because the child learns that the past is not held in one statue, one sign, one textbook, or one speech. It is held in evidence. America 250 can be a starting point for that kind of teaching. A family might choose one ancestor who lived around 1776 and build a research project around that person. Another family might study the town where their ancestors lived during the Revolution. Another might look at a local courthouse, cemetery, church, or historic road. Another might compare family stories with original records. That is how national history becomes personal history. A sign can be removed in an afternoon. A statue can be moved by order of a city, school, church, cemetery, or organization. A display can be rewritten. A building can be renamed. A marker can weather, crack, fade, or disappear. Records are harder to erase when they are preserved in many places. A newspaper may survive on microfilm and in digital archives. A pension file may sit in a federal collection. A deed may be copied into a county book. A church register may have been photographed. A cemetery inscription may appear in an old transcription, even after the stone becomes unreadable. A family Bible may have been scanned. A letter may have been donated to a university archive. A photograph may sit in a shoebox with a name on the back. Records are not perfect. They can be lost, burned, misfiled, misread, mistranscribed, or misunderstood. Courthouses burned, families threw papers away, clerks made errors, census takers misspelled names, newspapers printed rumors, pension applicants forgot dates, memory failed. But records give us a way to test claims. They give us something stronger than opinion. They help us ask, how do we know? How do we know this person served? How do we know this family lived here? How do we know this event happened at this location? How do we know this story was passed down accurately? How do we know what changed over time? A marker may point us toward an answer, but records help us prove it. One danger in public history is the temptation to flatten the past. Sometimes people want history to be all honor. Sometimes they want it to be all shame. Neither approach is enough. The people who lived before us were human. They had courage, blindness, conviction, sin, sacrifice, fear, faith, ambition, kindness, cruelty, duty, and weakness. Some did great good, some did great harm. Many lived ordinary lives shaped by the limits and assumptions of their time. Their choices still had consequences. A mature approach to history does not require us to pretend that every honored person was flawless. It also does not require us to pretend that every flawed person contributed nothing. It asks us to look carefully, weigh evidence, and tell the truth as fully as we can. That is one reason the America 250 anniversary is important. The Declaration of Independence set words before the world that became central to American identity. The country then spent generations struggling, fighting, arguing, expanding, failing, correcting, and trying again under the weight of those words. Family history can do the same. We can honor service without hiding hardship. We can tell stories of courage without ignoring conflict. We can name injustice without reducing every person to one label. We can recognize achievement without pretending the past was cleaner than it was. That does not weaken history. It strengthens it. America 250 gives families, researchers, and local historians a useful reason to act. Visit places connected to your family history. Photograph markers, buildings, grave markers, churches, roads, rivers, and old family land when you can. Save those images with dates, locations, and notes. Look for local histories, but do not stop there. Check the sources behind them. Search newspapers, deeds, probate records, tax lists, pension files, military records, church books, court records, maps, and manuscript collections. Ask relatives what they remember about local places that changed. Was a monument moved? Was a building renamed? Was the cemetery cleaned up? Was the school closed? Was a church torn down? Was a family farm sold? Was a road widened through an old neighborhood? Those memories may point to records you would not have searched otherwise. Make a list of ancestors who lived during the Revolutionary era. For each one, ask where they lived. What government ruled that place? What records exist? And what events may have touched their lives? If your ancestors arrived later, connect them to America's continuing story. The 250th anniversary is not only for descendants of revolutionary families. It is also for the millions whose families came afterward and became part of the country's long history. You can begin by photographing historical markers that still stand. Record the location and date of each photograph. Search old newspapers for dedication ceremonies, check local historical society files, compare marker text with original records. Ask older relatives what they remember about local places. Look for older maps, postcards, and courthouse records. Save copies of the documents you find. Share your research with family members. Donate important family papers to an archive, library, or historical society when appropriate. A nation's history is not preserved only by large institutions. It is also preserved by people who care enough to keep the evidence. Markers help us remember, but they are not the memory itself. Monuments help us notice, but they are not the whole past. Plaques help us begin, but they are not the final source. The history remains in the records, in the land, in the names, in the families, in the cemeteries, in the archives, in the newspapers, in the letters, in the ledgers, and in the questions people keep asking. As America approaches its 250th anniversary, there will be ceremonies, exhibits, speeches, arguments, celebrations, and public debates. Some places will restore markers, some will change them, some will remove them, some will add new ones. Some communities will tell stories that have been told for generations. Others will bring forward stories that were neglected for too long. Through all of that, the work of history continues. For those who care about family history, this anniversary is a call to look deeper. Look past the names carved in stone and search for the people whose lives sit quietly in the records. Look past the public square and search the courthouse book. Look past the monument and search the pension file. Look past the plaque and search for the family that lived nearby and left a trail. A marker can disappear. The search does not have to end. If you've got a hard-to-find ancestor you're stuck on, I'd love to hear about it. Just head over to ancestralfindings.com and click on Contact to send me a message. While you're there, take advantage of our free weekly genealogy lookups, explore thousands of articles, and enjoy hundreds of podcast episodes. We've been helping family history researchers since 1995. And if you're looking for even more, check out our Genealogy Gold Q&A series over on Patreon. Thanks for listening, and as always, happy searching.